because I think I had that background training, I at least knew what to do. And I knew I was familiar with the environment of a gym, which I think people underestimate for a woman how important that is.
Those are things that you cannot learn in a classroom. It's impossible to learn in theory. You have to practice that. You have to live.
So going from nationals to worlds, well, first of all, the first time that I qualified, I had to back out because I got hit by a car. I had major vertigo. I was pretty banged up, and I couldn't do the race.
The perfect diet. This is what you should be doing to be successful. And like you said, I don't necessarily agree. There is anything perfect. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about balancing business, motherhood, and being a world-class athlete. And no other person better to discuss this topic than Sarah Wilson. Sarah, do me a big favor. Tell us who you are and what you're about.
Hi, Fernando. Thanks for having me. My name is Sarah Wilson. I first met Fernando when I was starting out on my triathlon journey. I am now a nutrition coach. I'm a mom of 2. And I'm an entrepreneur. I've started several different businesses, some in the fitness and health field and others not. And I'm just a passionate, athlete and mom and business owner.
Yeah, I'm going to take Sarah back, way back, because I want you guys watching to really get a feel of who Sarah is. I only bring people on that I think can add value to you guys watching. And I firmly believe that at the end of this podcast, you're gonna get some key gold nuggets about what the topic, right? About running a business, about balancing that with motherhood, and about fitness. So, Sarah, let's go back to who were you in high school? Who was Sarah in high school?
Sarah was pretty shy, but Sarah was always an athlete. I got into endurance sports because I think it's just what I was naturally good at. Running was kind of my thing. I played soccer, I played volleyball. I tried pretty much everything, but I was told, and I always felt like I just had a knack for running. It came more easily to me than anything else. And so when I got to high school and you sort of have to narrow down your choices in sports just for time, the track coach was also my biology teacher, and he basically forced me to join the cross country team, which I had no interest in. I had no interest in long distance. I was a 400-meter runner. Didn't want to run anything more than that. Definitely not a mile, definitely not a 5K, which is what a cross country meet is. But he forced me to join the team and kind of threatened my biology grade if I didn't. so I did, like the good girl that I was. And I think, my first time out running, my first meet, I ran the 5K in 28 minutes. And then by the second meet, I ran it in 24 minutes. And I gradually progressed. I progressed pretty quickly, actually. And that became sort of like the foundation of my, athletic, track in high school. I really became a runner. I was also always very interested in art and design, which obviously has nothing to do with athletics, but it did influence my career path later in life. And then, I was just this quiet, skinny little runner. I didn't do much else other than run. Occasionally I would be forced to go to the weight room. At one point, my dad got me a membership at our local gym because he was worried about how skinny I was. And he, I think I have 2 other sisters, and I think as a father of 3 girls, my dad, was very protective, and he wanted us to be strong, and he really valued, strength in women, I think mostly out of protection. Which has really served me well in general. So,
yeah, I like that. Here's a couple of key things that Sarah just talked about that I, especially when I was into coaching, that I always preached, right? And being a father myself and an athlete in my own right, one of the things that I firmly believe, and Sarah kind of touched on it, but she brushed over it, was the fact that as a child, she played everything. Right? She played all these different sports. And I firmly believe that that created a foundation, a sports foundation, to later on, when she decided to specialize, helped her quickly progress in that in her specific sport, which at the time was cross country. So Sarah, let's backtrack. Do you think like that, do you agree with that statement? And if so, can you expand on that? And if you don't agree on it, explain why you don't agree on that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think also as a parent now, I want to expose my kids to as many different things as possible so that they can find what they're passionate about, what they're good at, what they enjoy. And you can't find that if you're not trying different things. And I also think in the same way that goes for education too. You should take as many different types of classes as you can. In high school, I took a lot of really hard math and science classes, even though I was more interested in the arts. I did it because I kind of felt pressured to, but at the same time, I think trying different things gives you confidence in your ability across many different areas. So even though I didn't end up a soccer player or a volleyball player or in science or math, I built confidence at a young age that I can do it if I need to, and I can probably try other things, without the fear of failing, because I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to fail at things. I know what it feels to overcome challenges and get better at things. I know what it feels like to do things that I, don't know if I'm good at or not. And I think whether it's sports or school, those are all amazing skills to build at a very young age so that you're not afraid later in life to try different things. And I want that for my kids as well. You can see your kids gravitating towards certain things at certain times, but I always try really hard to expose them to a variety of activities and across the board, and just, you got to see what sticks.
I love that, and I agree with that 100%. I mean, in my house, one of the rules in my house for my son was every summer he had to pick a sport that he hadn't played, and then he had to stick with it for that entire summer, whether he liked it or not. He had to follow through on that decision to pick whatever sport it was, and I think it served him well today. And I know for sure that for you, what you did in when you were much younger definitely served you well now. The last thing I want to talk about that you mentioned is the importance that your father pushed you to with strength training. Now, I'm a firm believer that as a CrossFitter, I believe in the 10 general physical skills, but for me, one of the primary ones is strength. And it doesn't matter if you're a male, woman, and young or old. I think the number one fitness component that if you had to pick one, I would always favor strength over anything else. And I used to say this all the time when people used to tell me, "Oh, you're being hyperbolic or you're exaggerating." But I used to tell people all the time, because I witnessed it, is if you look at statistics and you go to a nursing home, the majority of people that are in nursing homes, they're not really there because of illness. They're there because they don't have the physical strength to do to live a normal functioning life. So what was your experience with strength training? And do you think it helped you as an athlete later on?
Yes. I mean, I think one of the biggest benefits to starting so young, especially, in the 90s as a young girl, was overcoming that stereotype that lifting weights was for the guys. It's, muscles are manly. All of those kinds of negative stereotypes about strength training and women just are not a part of my vocabulary. I was, of course, like I said, I was very shy. I was reluctant to go to the gym. It felt really uncomfortable. I was definitely the only teenage girl in the gym. Absolutely. But I just kept showing up, and I learned the basics of strength training And it created a foundation moving forward. Granted, I really never didn't get that strong as a teenager. I mean, my body was my body. As I got older, and I think by the time I met you, I had really doubled down on the endurance stuff, and I had done marathons, and I was a runner. You know, I still went to the gym and I lifted weights in my own way. But I was still pretty weak. And I think, you know, we discovered that through racing. And I remember specifically how just awful I would feel at the end of the race. I would feel like I couldn't hold my own body up. You know, we would go on runs together for training. And then at the end of the runs, you would have us try to do the monkey bars by your house. And at first, like, I couldn't even cross the monkey bars. You know, I was weak despite all of my strength training in the past. Like, I was still pretty weak. I maybe had some muscle tone, but in terms of actual strength, I was really lacking. However, because I think I had that background training, I at least knew what to do. And I was familiar with the environment of a gym, which I think people underestimate for a woman how important that is, because a lot of women are intimidated by those spaces because they are male dominated. They don't know how to use the machines necessarily. And I knew since I was 15 how to use all that stuff. And I overcame that weird fear of being in a male dominated space. So when you and I started training and you introduced me to CrossFit, I was excited. I was like, cool, this looks, I want to be able to do that. And again, back to the confidence you build as a younger person, I knew that even though I couldn't do it then, that I could get stronger and I could learn and I could get better. And I had enough confidence in my ability to learn and adapt to, you know, stick to the program and, you know, just change my body completely.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I saw, especially towards the end. We're going to get into this now. How faster you got, the stronger you got. So let's fast forward, because I want you, you know, if you can share an experience or something, something within your athletic past prior to getting into really competitive, like duathlons. But sure, give me a story of an athletic event or something you did that at that point either shifted your mindset or something that's memorable to you.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think, like I said, I ran a couple marathons when I was in college, and I think I ran the Chicago Marathon, and then I ran the San Diego Marathon. I trained for both of them pretty much the exact same way, long distance runs, kind of like long, moderately paced distance runs. And that was my training. And I ran both marathons in the exact same time. And I was like, I didn't improve at all. Like, that's annoying, you know? So I was like, okay, cool. I guess I know how fast I can run a marathon. Like, that's my time. I don't remember what the time was. And then years go by. I met you and Tom. We start training together, and you guys say, hey, let's do the Miami Marathon. And I was like, no, I'm over it. I don't do marathons anymore. I already know, I know what I'm capable of. You know, I'm not doing it. And you guys eventually convinced me. So we trained together. And at that point, we were training in more of what was called at the time the CrossFit endurance style, which was a lot of interval training, not a lot of mileage at all, and a lot of strength training. So we drastically reduced the mileage that I was used to running, drastically increased the strength training that I was used to doing. And we trained for the marathon in that way. And I remember throughout the process being like, I don't feel like we're running enough. We're not doing, where are the 10, 15, 20 mile runs? And I was a little nervous, but actually, I think both of you guys got injured and ended up not running the marathon. So I had to do it by myself. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I did run the marathon. I improved my time dramatically. I should go back and find the times. I don't remember what it was, but I remember being in complete shock. Like, I was, you know, maybe 5 years older than I had been when I ran those first two marathons at the same time. And I had been running significantly less for training. And yet I crushed my old time. And I was just blown away. And I recovered much more quickly. And I didn't feel like a complete mess at the end of it. I bounced back really fast. I didn't feel like I destroyed my body. and I was faster. So that was really my first experience with really seeing the effects of increasing my strength training and reducing the long, slow distance training.
Yeah, I remember that. Now, I, I if we're thinking about the same race, I ran that race, but I ran it with Brian.
Okay.
It was Brian's first. I know Brian. For those that don't know my son's name, that's my son. And my son never even trained with us.
Yeah.
But
You just did.
yeah. I said, nah, you're going to do something hard today. And we went out and ran that. And anyway, so that was an interesting story. I made a couple of other people do that race too, with just CrossFit training. But anyway, now let's fast forward to when we were training specifically in duathlon, and you competed. Correct me if I'm wrong. The qualification for Worlds was in Washington, correct?
It was in one of the Carolinas.
For the Carolinas, I don't remember doing. Anyways,
we drove down to like North Carolina or something for the duathlon national,
the nationals,
qualifier race, nationals,
nationals. But you made it through Worlds, or you qualified for Worlds through DC, wasn't it?
No, I qualified for Worlds. It was both times was in North Carolina. I qualified for Worlds twice. Right. The first time I qualified, I ended up getting hit by a car a couple weeks before the race. Yeah. And then I had to recover, train, qualify again for the following year. So, yeah.
Yeah. So so walk us through that. How was number one? How was your experience competing in nationals? So let's talk about that.
That was really exciting. I mean, again, this was the highest level of competition that I had attempted, and you had encouraged me to try it, to do it, to just sort of see where I stack up against, the rest of the country. Basically, we had done only like CrossFit endurance style training, a lot of interval training, a lot of strength training. And I loved that experience. I never felt better. I shocked myself with the fact that I qualified. I don't know if you expected that, but I don't think I expected that to happen. It was very exciting. It was definitely, that whole time was definitely a highlight of my athletic career, for sure.
Cool. And it was super exciting. Like I knew right off in fact, let me just backtrack for when I met Sarah, I knew right off the bat that she was special. Like I'm like, this girl has the talent, has the mindset, more importantly, to be successful in whatever she puts her mind to it. And keep in mind, people, she jumped into duathlons, and I refer to as a rookie because she didn't do that in the past. She was a runner, but she wasn't a cyclist. But she had the power output that could be successful on the bike as well as on the run. So I had confidence that she was going to do very well in a national, from the national standpoint. Now, Worlds is a different story. We're going to get into Worlds now. As an endurance athlete, as a U.S. endurance athlete, very, very difficult to do really, really well in a world competition, And this is just my opinion. I don't have any evidence other than what's reported, but endurance athletes internationally have a leg up because they don't get tested. They don't have all the rigor that we have in the U.S., hence why it's very difficult to find a U.S. athlete do really, really well on an international level. So let's talk about when you went to compete in Worlds. How was that experience?
Yeah. Well, before we talk about Worlds, I just you made me think of something. When I moved to Miami, that was when I got into triathlon, and I had never done anything, and I had never done a multi-sport event ever. And I just remember I signed up for your team, and I didn't even own a bicycle. I did not own a bike.
Yeah.
And I just remember laying in bed the night before the first training and saying to my husband, like, I think I'm going to be really good at this. Like, I think and he's like, yeah, I'm sure you'll be great. I'm like, no, I think I'm going to win stuff. Like, I had never raced on a bike before. And I was just like, I don't know why I had this feeling, it was something I had been on my mind for a long time. It's like to the point where I think my first bike was, I borrowed one of your racing bikes to try out. I took it home. You have to clip in, which I had never done before. I started out riding a racing bike just with my sneakers. Like, that was how I started. And then the first time I clipped in, I just rode it down my street, and I just all of a sudden like it fell over. So for me to go from that to now, of course I didn't think I was going to qualify for a world championship race. Like, I was just such a newbie still, it felt like. But and I owe everything to you for that, for the coaching, for the encouragement, for the belief in me, because I didn't consider that as an option for me. And I was just like, I just think this will be fun. I'll be good at it, and you had your eyes set on something much bigger for me, which I will never forget. And so going from nationals to worlds, well, first of all, the first time that I qualified, I had to back out because I got hit by a car. I had major vertigo. I was pretty banged up, and I couldn't do the race. So that was disappointment number one. And then I train, I also, in the meantime, like when I got hit by the car, they discovered that I had nodules on my thyroid that could have been cancerous that had to be removed. So I get hit by a car, I have my thyroid removed, and then I have to get back to training so I can qualify again for Worlds. I remember being on the track with you, like not being able to breathe because the healing took a while on my thyroid with the vocal cords and the airways. So it was not a perfect journey to Worlds. That being said, I felt as ready as I could be, all things considered. It was an incredible, just to be there. It was in Scotland.
Edinburgh, Scotland.
Edinburgh, yeah. It was incredible to be there. It was on a beautiful site. Arthur's Seat is what it was called. People from all over the world were there. My husband was there with me. And at one point he was like, wow, he's like, this is really cool. He's like, we should do this more often. And I was like, well, it was really hard and I almost died. So I don't know how often we're going to be doing this. But I did the race, and unfortunately in the first, I did the run, was good on my run split, got on the bike, and within a couple minutes on my bike, I blew a tire. And so I took my bike off the course. I had to fix the tire. It just took me out of the race, sadly. In terms of placing, I was, it was not happening for me. I still gave it my all. I had an incredible experience. It was it almost like brings tears to my eyes, like how beautiful that experience was. And just the views from those up on those, it was kind of like a cliff, like uphill bike. And I mean, it felt really special, and really, it was like the crown on my endurance journey. And it was good timing because David and I, my husband and I, were at the point where we wanted to start a family. And I was like, I need to do this so that I can feel ready for that next phase of my life, which was going to be having kids for us. So it was kind of like, I knew that was it. Like, I knew that was my chance, because I knew that I was, after that, going to start focusing on my family, which was going to change the way that I trained and thought about training and racing. So despite the injury and the surgery and the flat tire, still one of the most incredible experiences of my life.
Yeah, I know the feeling about the flat tire, because my best shot to qualify for Worlds, and this was in DC. That's why I don't know why I thought you were with me at this time, but I was on cloud 9 because I was ranked. I was in the best shape of my life. I had my first run. I was number 3 coming into the bike transition. get on that bike, and bam, I get a flat within the first 2 miles. I'm like, oh.
Also,
So,
I had never gotten a flat in a race before. That was the first time I had ever gotten a flat. Like, what are the odds, you know?
Yep.
So
same here. And then after that, I never had another chance to qualify for Worlds. So when you qualify for Worlds, like I was living vicarious through you. I was like, yes,
we made it. We made it.
Yes, yes we did. So I want to transition now to business, right? And can you let me see how I word this question. Being an athlete, do you think everything you learn about being an athlete, do you think that actually helped you to change your mindset to attack business the same way? Or explain to me how that experience of being a high-level athlete, how did that transition into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a correlation between, the skills and experiences of an athlete and, being successful at anything in life. You develop just a certain type of resolve and a certain type of grit that I think is really important when you're running a business. And I think especially as an endurance athlete, it's a solo sport. It's just you. And, in the same way as being an entrepreneur, you have to balance a lot, wear a lot of hats, be responsible for a lot of different things all across the board. And, I think there's definitely a connection there. I just don't think I would be who I am as a person without my experience in athletics and fitness. And a lot of that does come back to the confidence that is built when you push yourself like that in a really physical way, and the mental, struggle that competing like that is. I can't really think of another life experience that builds those types of character traits. And I think also, I always say, I had a really nice childhood. I have a family that loves me. I have, my life was beautiful and easy and in a lot of ways, and I'm extremely fortunate. And so I think for me, sports and athletics created this environment where I had to struggle, and I didn't have to struggle in a lot of other areas of my life growing up. I was, taken very well care of. My parents looked out for me. But I think when you're forced into an environment where you have to be a leader, you have to struggle, you have to make sacrifices, it builds a type of grit that is essential for running a business.
Man, I can't agree with that statement more. So for me, there's two things in life that really shape you. It could be negative or it could be positive, but most of the time it's going to be positive. And that's being in sports, right? And then for me is being in the military, right? Those two things really set the tone for a lot in life. Challenges, obstacles, ups and downs, forcing you to really, like the Marine Corps always says, adapt and overcome, right? Those things are fundamental. Those are things that you cannot learn in a classroom. It's impossible to learn in theory. You have to practice that. You have to live that. Another quote that I always take from Mike Tyson is, everyone has a plan until they get freaking punched in the mouth, right? So if you're not, or if you're never put in that environment, it's very, very, very difficult to understand what it is to be there. So, business for me, it's no different than, playing a sport. It may not, in business, it may not be difficult, but you're going to have competitors. You're going to have ups and downs. There's going to be times where and as an athlete, you can overtrain and miss the mark. And in business, right, you can do the same thing. There's the parallels are there. So, and I'm glad you recognize the fact that you wouldn't be you if it wasn't for your childhood, right? You wouldn't be you for the experiences you had as a child and in sports, right?
Mhm.
Just like I wouldn't be me without sports or the Marine Corps. Just, I mean, yeah, right behind me, right up here. Where is it at? Right there, right? That set my foundation very, very young in life. So I'm glad you experienced that. Now, you said something very interesting, and I want to go ahead and go into that as well. You say you wear many hats, and I firmly believe that you do wear many hats, right? You're a mother, you're running a business, you're trying to keep your fitness up. So tell me, how do you manage that? How do you manage time? What strategies can you give us or tips can you give us to help manage and balance those three components of your life?
Yeah, I mean, that is a hard question, because it is something that I feel like I am figuring out and working with every day. I mean, this is because, things change so much year to year, and it's really been for me about getting very clear on my priorities, and also managing my expectations. And what I mean by that is, I want to be, because I am the competitor that I am, like, I want to be the best at everything I want to do. I want to be the best athlete. I want to be the best business owner. I want to be the best mom. And you can't. I'm sorry. You have to establish what is good enough, and in the categories that you are most passionate about and that matter the most to you. There are a lot of things that I don't get to do because I put so much time, effort, and energy into those three buckets of my life. And there have been times where the balance the equation, I shouldn't say balanced, because it's never balanced. It's the energy directed towards each thing has shifted. Before I had kids, I was competing at the world level. I was running a successful business. And then, I had to change my relationship with fitness in order to make room for the family that I knew that I wanted. And that for me personally, that meant that I wasn't going to compete at that level anymore. I was still going to train. I'm going to train like I'm ready to compete. I'm ready to go. Like I want to train at that level, but I don't put that pressure on myself to be a, nationally ranked anything in athletics anymore. And that is something that I was mentally prepared to accept when I decided to have a family. But it is a conscious decision that you have to make, because I think what I didn't realize, before having kids, was how many times I would have to make decisions like that over and over again. You kind of have to like whittle away. If you want to add to one bucket, you got to take something away from another. And then I think what happened with my business after my first son was born, I was still going full steam ahead. I was like, I got this. I'm going to crush it as a business owner. I'm the best mom. And then, I have another kid and it gets a little harder, and I realize I'm compromising more family time than I really want to be. And then you have to ask yourself these honest questions. Okay, what do I want out of both of these things? And am I realistically going to be able to achieve it? Well, what I wanted was to be spending more time with my kids, but I also wanted my business to be like way up here still. And that wasn't going to happen for me because there are only so many hours in the day. So I pulled back on one area so I could put my more energy into another area that felt right to me. And I think you just have to constantly be reevaluating yourself and your own values, your own value system, so that you can feel okay with these sacrifices, with these hard decisions that you're going to have to make over and over again. So when I took the gas off the career pedal a little bit so I could put more into the family, it's still something that I struggle with, because like I said, I want to have the best business I can have. And I constantly have to remind myself that I made this choice to be this type of a parent. It is extremely fulfilling, and it's okay that means that for now I have to pull back somewhere else. And I think the other important thing that I have to remember is that if we're lucky, life is very long, and we're going to live through a lot of different phases where different things are going to come into the foreground and different things are going to go into the background. And right now, like, this is a family foreground moment for me. And I still have other things going on that I'm passionate about and that I'm trying to build, but I'm allowing myself the time to do that in a slower way than I would be if I didn't have my family obligations. And I sometimes joke that like, oh, like by the time my kids are in college, then I'm going to really crush it in my career. I'm going to be a different person, and I just think it's important to just be honest about how much time you really do have and what are your priorities and what's gonna take the front seat in this moment, and understand that just because what you have to focus on or want to focus on now doesn't mean that in 5 or 10 years that can't change. So you're never going to lose an opportunity to pursue something that you're passionate about. If you're truly passionate about it, it will stay with you. And if you just have to like keep nurturing it, maybe it's on the side. And it'll be, when you're ready for it, when you're ready to come back for it, it'll be there for you. And, you'll be able to spend more time and energy on that side of things.
My God. First of all, you gave me chills. And I'm going to tell you why you gave me chills, right? I'm actually a little emotional as well.
Aw.
I think, number one, what you just said is probably the most mature thing I've heard someone say in a long time. Because you're 100% right. There is absolutely no, I hear people say all the time, I want work-life balance. Listen, I get that, right? But there's never really balance. You really have to understand what are your priorities and focus on your priorities. Everything else is second plate. There's no way you can be a super successful parent and run a super successful business. They don't jive, people, right? They don't crisscross. And I for one, and I'm sure your husband, your kids will 1,000% appreciate you, 5, 10 years from now, that you did sacrifice certain things because and you said something very important. It was your decision, right? It was something that you wanted to do. And that is to prioritize your family. I think so many people today, and I'm going to raise my hand because I'm very guilty of this. Very few people today really sit down and ask themselves those tough questions. Because man, you're right. You cannot be very good at many things. You can only be very good at one thing. I always use the example of Tom Brady. Tom Brady sacrificed his family to be the best quarterback on the planet, right? Mm-hmm. That was his decision. He wanted to be the best quarterback on the planet. But as a result of that, he sacrificed his family. Right? He's no longer married to Giselle. It is what it is, right? But I don't think Tom Brady would change anything. And 20 years from now, I think you're going to look back and say the same thing, that you wouldn't change anything, right? So, yeah. I mean, what you said is powerful. I hope people caught that. I hope people realize how important that is. So my next question on that, and it's related to what less, as a mother, when now, as the world knows now, it's good. Your priority was your family. So what lessons did you learn as you started to shift gears, having more priority to your family? What lessons can you tell us you learned from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the lessons, it's interesting because I've gone through a couple different shifts career-wise, just because it's something, like I said, I'm always trying to figure out, how to be doing enough in my career to be fulfilling to myself and to set myself up for later success, but not so much that I'm ever taken away from my family more than I'm comfortable with. And this isn't to say that everyone should operate this way. First and foremost, you have to decide what level like, what is your comfort level? And I think one thing that I've loved about, just having female mom friends is that you get to watch people operate in completely different ways and find fulfillment and enjoyment regardless of how many hours a week they work or how many hours they spend at home or if they choose to work outside the home at all. And I'm always most impressed with and in awe of the women who they know what they want, they make that decision, and then they accept that. They accept whatever the end result is, whatever the sacrifices are, and they don't look to anyone for approval or or kind of kudos. It's just I chose this because it works for me. It's not what you're doing. It doesn't really matter. And I have a very diverse friend group in terms of their relationships to like their work and home lives. So I think that the most important thing that I have learned is that you just really have to do, it sounds cheesy and cliche, but you just have to do what's true to you and ignore any sort of external, expectations of what it means to be a strong woman, what it means to be a successful woman, what it means to be a good mom, because it doesn't matter. What matters is what's happening in your house, in your head, in your heart. And it's really hard to not try to go by somebody else's playbook, whether it's the other moms in your circle, whether it's your own mom. But I think that is the most important thing, is to just, get clear on who you are and what you want, and then be confident in your choices moving forward. And it's definitely not something that I've always been good at. I think that I've had to sort of change my definition of what career success is. And I think it's only in hindsight that I realize that I was really taking a step back for my career when my kids were little. I don't think that's something that I was comfortable admitting at the time that I was doing it. And I wish that I had been able to admit that at the time, because I think I would have had a better experience in that career. I was trying too hard to make it bigger than I actually wanted it to be, because I felt the pressure to be successful. I felt the pressure to be, not just a mom. So that in building this business, it was not at first an authentic reflection of my values at the time. I was doing it. I was partially doing it or making some decisions because I was just trying so hard to be like textbook successful. And that's not what I should have been doing. And so now in this kind of career path that I'm going down, I'm trying to be more aware of that, more aware of, am I doing this because I think it's what I should be doing and what other people expect from me? Or am I doing this because it makes sense for my life? And I think like a lot of that ties into the way that people make decisions about fitness and health. There's so much noise out there about you should be doing this and you should be eating that. And technically it might be correct and accurate advice, but what sense does it make in your life? Does it make any sense at all? Does it support your goals? Does it have anything to do with your values? And if the answer is no, it doesn't matter how many people are preaching this like perfect diet, this perfect workout plan. It's not for you. Like, move on, find what is, So that's kind of how I feel about my career at this point. Is I get to decide what success is. I get to decide what I need financially, what I need, in terms of my family, in terms of how my time is spent. And if you don't consider that to be successful, then why do I care? It's just
that is once again, I got chills because that is so spot on. I always, I tell myself, my wife tells me all the time too, that I'm wired different. And I firmly believe that in today's day and age, I'm 1000% wired different, because I don't give a crap about other people, right? I do what's best for me. I do what's best for my family. And you said it correctly. the definition of success is what you decided is, not what society is telling you what the definition of success is, what you decide. And I'm glad you realize that. And you mentioned this as well, is that you feel more fulfilled. Yeah, because it was your freaking decision. Yeah, you wanted to do that. And I'm glad you brought that, again, I'm glad you touched on that, because the problem today, especially today, because of social media and everything, we all want to, not that we all want to fit in, but we all have a skewed perception of what a mother should be, what a successful woman should be, or a successful person, period, should be. Now, man, that's outside noise.
Yeah.
You have to be happy with you, and you have to define success. Don't let other people define success for you. You have to.
Yeah, and I think anytime I feel bad about myself or something, or I feel conflicted about, like, I should be doing this and I should be doing that, that anxiety is like my cue to be like, whoa, slow down. Is that what you really want? Is that feeling because you actually want that, or is that feeling because somebody else is making you feel bad about that? And I think for me, I guess the other like advice that I would give, or something that's worked for me, is in those moments of self-doubt and kind of just confusion or feeling bad, just slow down and pick it apart, pull it apart, and just get to the root of what is the thing that's bugging you. And sometimes the thing is like, oh, you know what, actually I do want to step up my game here. Like, that's making me feel annoyed because like I want that for myself. And then you can direct your energy in that way. But if you pick it apart and you're like, you know what, that's just making me feel bad because, it looks good on paper, I can put that to the side. I can forget about that and move on with what does matter to me.
Yeah, 100%. And then you said something else that I wanna emphasize, right? And that is you hear people say, this is the perfect workout, this is the perfect diet, this is what you should be doing to be successful. And like you said, I don't necessarily agree. There is anything perfect. The perfect diet is the one you're going to follow. The perfect workout is the one you're going to do. The perfect business plan is the one you're going to focus on, right? So everything else is just noise. And you can there's many different paths to get to a specific location. You just have to decide which path is good for you, which one you're going to stick with, because if you're not going to stick with something, it's irrelevant.
Yep.
So what I'm going to switch a little bit in terms and talk a little bit more about motherhood, because I think it's very important. And as it relates to fitness as well, right? So what influence, as a mother, has that influenced your approach to fitness? And if yes, how?
I'm definitely not one of those people who says, I work out so I can be strong for my kids. I work out so I can play with my kids. No, I work out for me. Like, that's for me. And I first just want to say that that's okay. Like, you don't just, when you become a mom, you don't have to suddenly like do everything in the name of your children, And I think that is, women, I think a lot of times feel like they have to be martyrs for their children. And if I'm going to spend time on myself, it better benefit my kids as well. No, I don't believe that. I think you spend time on yourself because it benefits you, and you get to exist in this world as a complete human, just like your children do. So I work out for me. I think that, of course, I do like that my kids see how I value health and fitness. I think it definitely will impact, their relationship at some point with health and fitness. I know my parents' dedication to health and fitness influenced me, whether it was directly or indirectly. But at the same time, they're still at the age where like they don't want to do what I'm doing. They don't care. It's like kind of. I know that they know their mom is strong. They talk about my muscles. There's all that. But at the end of the day, like, they're kids. Like, my older son, recently joined this like fitness club at school, where every Wednesday morning you go to school like an hour early, and they learn how to use weight machines and all that stuff. I was like, Ryder, do they need a volunteer? I could come in and I could volunteer and help you guys train, And he was just like, I'll pass, thanks. So they don't really care. They don't care much. I know they'll appreciate it later. I think it does benefit them indirectly, but that is not why I do it. I do think being a mother makes it harder to stay fit. And if anything, it's just forced me to be better at time management. And it really has forced me to say the thing I just said, to say, you know, it's okay for me to be selfish with my time sometimes. It's okay for me to do things that are just for me. And I think every mother could benefit from hearing that and hopefully embracing it. It's absolutely necessary and absolutely okay for you to do things for yourself that have nothing to do with your family. And for me, fitness is kind of one of those things. And I will always prioritize it. And I've definitely had to learn you have to relearn I had to relearn how to prioritize my health and fitness as my kids were getting older, because it's not easy. And it does take a lot more planning and a lot more, there are times where I feel like I'm disappointing someone because I'm around for 1 hour less of the day, or I'm not available for one thing or another. But I just think like the practice in prioritizing yourself in the name of your own physical and mental health is extremely important.
No, I 100% agree. So talk to me about what you're doing now. Tell me about your business. What got you inspired to start your fitness coaching thing? Let's talk about that.
Okay. I don't know how long of of an explanation you want, but I am currently a nutrition coach. I do virtual coaching, and I started a podcast with my sister. It's called The Fit Sister. What inspired me here, obviously my relationship with nutrition and fitness has been a lifelong thing. It's been part of my career in and out over the course of the past, 20 years probably. I was sort of at one of those turning points where in between these fitness careers, I was teaching woodworking to children, which is obviously a separate story because it has nothing to do with health and nutrition. Anyway, that's what I was doing when my kids were little. And it kind of
wait.
Sorry.
Because you just remind me of that, and I want because I think this is important. So, what was it? It was something.
It's called Maker Monkey Workshop.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. And you. Before we go into your new venture, talk about that, because I thought that was so cool. More importantly, because when we talked about it, you wanted something so that to incorporate your kids with that. So walk us through that, because I think that's cool.
So when I transitioned to Maker Monkey Workshop, I had a jewelry business prior to that. That's what I was going all out with before I had my kids. It was a fitness inspired jewelry company. I'm a metalsmith by trade. And I had this moment when my kids were very little where I realized if I wanted that business to be successful, I was going to have to double my time investment in it. And I wouldn't be there for them when they came home from school, and I wouldn't, it was that was gonna be the trade-off. I was like, do I go all out on this business, or do I pull back and refocus on my kids? I decided there were a lot of other things involved in that decision that had to do with the business, but I decided to pull back there so I could focus on my kids. But I was kind of like, well, then what am I gonna do? Because I wasn't gonna do nothing. I still had to earn some money and have a fulfilling life outside of being a mother. That's just what I knew what I wanted. So I started Maker Monkey Workshop, which is DIY for kids. And it started because I went into he was then 4. I went into my 4-year-old's classroom and showed them how to make jewelry with hammers and stuff. And they were just so enamored with the tools. And I was kind of like, oh, this could be something I could do. So I built this whole business around teaching kids how to use tools. And I love everything about it. It's, it was such an incredible experience. I'm still doing it on a small level. This is one of those things where I'm like, I'm going to keep my toes in the water there because I love it so much. And one day when I have more time, it's coming back. It's going to be a thing. it's operating on a small level at the moment. Anyway, DIY for kids, and I've had so many incredible experiences with my own children through it, with other families, with my community. And then as I realized that was the career that I had, that I was like, this has to blow up. This has to be huge. I have to be, I kind of like forgot that I started it in order to be home with my kids, and then was like, I need to make this gigantic. And then I was like, whoa, that's not why you're doing this. So I kind of got it to the level where I felt that it was a success by my definition. So proud of myself for learning that lesson. I was like, this doesn't need to be bigger. I love it. I will keep doing it on a small scale. However, I need to figure out what is next, because I do want something more in terms of my career. And so I'm also getting older, as we all are, and I could tell that my body is different, the way I respond to my training is different, and my friends are all going through the same stuff, like, what's happening? Why does this seem so hard all of a sudden? So I did a certification in women as a women's coaching specialist. And that was just really for my own knowledge. I was just like, I need to know the answers to all these questions, because everybody keeps asking me and I got to figure out for myself too. So I did my women's coaching specialist certification, and I talked to my sister Natalie on the phone all the time. She calls me for fitness advice. We talk about nutrition. We talk about our hopes and dreams, like literally everything. And so she was talking me through this transition, and I had been lamenting about how I wasn't sure what I was going to do next. And she was like, I feel like you should get into nutrition, be a coach. She's like, I follow these women on social media and they just remind me of you. It's something I could see you doing. So I was like, you know what, that is kind of like piquing my interest at the moment. So I did a course, a nutrition coaching certification. So I became a certified nutrition coach. And in the meantime, in these phone calls with my sister, she kept telling me I should start a podcast, because she teaches podcasting at her high school, where she also teaches English. And she kept saying, you should start a podcast. And I was like, no, we should start a podcast. We should start a podcast. And she's like, I don't have time for that. I have 3 kids and a full-time job. I'm not starting a podcast. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not either. So unless you do it, I'm not doing it. So she kept kind of bugging me to do it, and I kept nudging her to do it with me. And finally she gave in. She's like, all right, fine, this could be fun. She's like, I'm teaching this course. I should probably practice what I preach. So we decided that the format was going to be basically, what all of our conversations have always been, which was her coming to me as sort of this, she refers to herself as the normal person, with her normal person problems. She's like, I'm a busy mom of 3, and I want to be healthy, but I don't want to be like as hardcore as you, and I don't know what to do. So that's kind of like the foundation of the format of the podcast. And it's our sisterly dynamic, which is me, the big sister, trying to help her make good choices without changing who she is as a person. And it's been awesome. I mean, talk about a fulfilling experience. I get to, bond with my sister, create something with my sister, talk about something that I'm passionate about. And it definitely kind of like plugs in with my coaching business. And I've always loved writing, and that's something that I've always wanted to, I've done it for every business that I've run. But it's something that I want to continue to get better at, and that I want it to be, a big part of whatever I'm doing moving forward. And so this has also given me the opportunity to do that. And I don't know, it's been awesome. And I think no matter what I've done, there's always been this element of like health and creativity, and trying to merge those 2 things together, because the same girl I was in high school, I was like that track runner artist girl, and in a lot of ways I'm still that person, and those are the things that are coming through in my latest business venture. So
I love it. What did you guys, because it's fairly new, how long have you guys been at it now?
We have 10 episodes, so 10 weeks.
any what challenges have you guys had to overcome so far, or if any? The
biggest challenge was just like putting ourselves out there. I I don't have any aspirations to be an influencer or personality. I just want to do something that I love and help people. However, we've chosen this platform that is we do video podcasts every single time. We started off just doing audio. We do video podcasts every time. And I'm not used to being this out there with my, I'm kind of an introvert, and a lot of the work that I've done in the past is stuff that's behind the scenes. And despite the fact that I'm talking to you on end right now, it's not my comfort zone at all. It's not my comfort zone to project myself as the expert on anything. That's definitely not something I'm comfortable with. But I care so much about health, and I care so much about other people that sort of overrides those fears. But honestly, that's been the hardest part has been just putting it out there. Starting something new at the age of 44 has also been a huge challenge, because I was talking about this with a friend the other day. Is I feel like I should be doing the thing that I've been doing for 20 years now. You know what I mean? I feel like I should be established in my career, and that's another one of those external pressures where I'm uncomfortable that I'm not this thing that I think I should be, because of this pressure that I feel from society. Like, a lot of my friends have been established in their careers for 20 years and they are experts in their field. And I'm literally posting podcast episode number 1, a couple months ago. I'm how can I I don't like the feeling of being new at something, especially at my age. And
but isn't that exciting though? Don't you think don't you also think that is exciting? I mean, it's new. It's I don't know, because
yes.
Like you, I started a completely different career.
Yeah.
Than and older, because I started my company. Started my company in 2016. So how old was I? I was probably 48, 49 when I started my company and my new career. But it's exciting. Be excited. Yeah. You're good. And
I know.
And you're doing phenomenal on the camera.
Thank you.
Very, very well.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those things where several years from now, I'm going to be really proud of us for doing it too, because I don't think it's something that a lot of people would do. I don't, and I think we also, this feeling of, and the same goes for, I'm going to make a fitness parallel in a minute, but anytime oh shoot, I just lost my train of thought. It really sucks to have to put out a version of something you care about that is not your best work. Because how could episode 1 be my best work? I've never done it before. You know what I mean? Right. But I care so much about it, and I have such high hopes for it that it's a very uncomfortable feeling to put it. And I'm you're really putting it out there to the world. But I have to put this thing out there, get feedback on it, even though I know it's not the best I can do, simply because I haven't had the time to become the best I can be. And that's a hard thing to do. And I think I'm proud of myself for overcoming that barrier, because think of all the missed opportunities if you don't put yourself in those situations. I'm excited to see what happens if I just keep plugging away at this for, what's it gonna look like a year from now? What's it gonna look like 5 years from now? That is exciting to me. And I think the same can be said for people who are trying to get into fitness, who are afraid to start from zero because it is so uncomfortable. You're an adult, to be a newbie at something feels really uncomfortable. And you're better than this, and you can do more, but you actually can't because you haven't trained yet. So that first step is so hard, and the older you get, the harder it gets. So I think it's been a really, as hard as it's been, it's also been, I think it's really good for me. I think it's good for anybody to go through that. I think it's healthy. I think it's, I don't know. It's a necessary evil, I guess.
No, I agree. And that's great advice that you just gave. And that is, you just have to start. I mean, it doesn't matter where you are in life. You just have to take that first step. Because if you don't take that first step, you're never going to know. And the other thing I want to add to what you just said is that you also have to have a little bit of patience. Nothing is going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to be hard. But where you are today is going to be vastly different where you will be in 5, 10, 15 years from now if you stay consistent. It's just like in fitness or business, fitness, and in life in general, consistency is key.
Yeah.
Just have to keep going.
Yep.
And just like in relationships, there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs.
Yeah.
So just have to keep hammering along. So let's try to wrap this up. Let's try to land this plane a little bit. Give me let's start with this. What is one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about nutrition and fitness?
I think that a big misconception is that it has to be perfect to be worth doing. Meaning that you have to know exactly what to eat. You have to know the specific way to eat and the specific way to work out in order to have any success with it, which is absolutely not true. I think a common misconception is that you have to do big dramatic things to get any results, which is absolutely not true. I've seen firsthand how very small changes in behavior and decision-making can lead to incredible results in fitness and health. Let me see if I can think of anything else. I think that there's a misconception that it's easy for the people who are doing it well. It's not easy for anybody. And I think on the flip side of that, there's this misconception that I'm a failure if I can't get a handle on it. You're not a failure. The fact that you're even trying, makes you a success already. You just haven't, if you've been stuck and you haven't figured out how to, cross over to the next phase of who you want to be, you're not a failure. You just haven't figured it out yet, and it takes time. And back to your point of patience, So I just think that that's one of those things that people give up too easily on themselves, and it makes me sad. So don't give up.
Yeah, I'm with you. One last question. What big advice would you give someone that, and specifically a woman that, is older, their kids are either already out of the house or almost out of the house, and they want to explore and try something new, but they're hesitant? What advice would you give that person?
I think that the key word there is explore and get curious, and don't get so fixated on whether or not you're going to be successful at doing the thing, because the success is just getting up and trying the thing, not whether or not you're any good at it. You can try it, you can love it, you can hate it, you can be good, you can be bad, and you can decide to proceed or you can decide to stop. But the limiting factor shouldn't be whether or not you think you're gonna be good at it. You should embrace the curiosity and treat this phase of your life as, your own personal quest, and try to alleviate some of the pressure or stress you might feel from whether or not you're going to be good at the thing, and just say, hey, I just get to, how lucky am I? I just get to try these things and, see how it feels. And that should be the only assessment. Not did I do a good job? Did this change my life? Did this change my body? Just, how did this make me feel? Do I want to proceed? Do I want to try something new? I mean, it really is a gift when you think about it. And it shouldn't be a task. It should be an exploration.
I love that. Well, my beautiful people, this is going to conclude this. Sarah, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's been fun. It's been educational, inspiring. I mean, you gave me the chills a couple of times. So for those watching, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Follow me on Instagram. I'm going to have all of Sarah's information in the description below. So if you want to get a hold of her, and if you're looking for a nutrition coach, there's no one better than Sarah. Highly recommended. Love you guys. See you in the next one.